Hi, my name is Robin Fritz, and it's time for Coffee and Cosmos with Robin. So, good morning from Seattle, Washington. Today, I want to talk a little bit about making promises to ourselves, what that means, why they're so important, why it's important to us to really think seriously about what a promise means to us and how that reverberates in the world around us. We're also going to do a quick grounding and balancing exercise with the crystal Fallon, a crystal of the week, a couple of questions for anyone who wants to ask a question or share their thoughts, especially about what a promise means to you. And I'd love it if you just chime in from wherever you are and say hello and where you're from. So thank you for the few people that have popped in here to say hello. So welcome again to Coffee and Cosmos with Robin. My name is Robin Fritz. I'm an intuitive and spiritual consultant and certified past life regression specialist. I'm based in Seattle, Washington in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm also the host of the Om Times radio show, The Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World, which airs on the first and third Mondays of the month. So next Monday, August 19th. And here's Fallon. So Fallon is citrine Lemurian quartz. He's a rare power crystal. You can feel or experience his energy the way your intuition works most strongly. And so right now, together, let's just put mind, body, and spirit together and take a moment to allow Fallon's energy to help us get grounded and balanced here in this space together. So if you take your attention to the top of your head, we're going to breathe down from the top of our heads to the bottom of our feet and back up again. And just let the cares of the day wash away and feel yourself connecting to Fallon and thereby with all of us here in community. Taking a deep breath now, take your attention to the top of your head and breathe down your face, your neck, your shoulders, your chest, your hips, your knees, and your feet. The top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And just feel that energy line run down you. Now from the bottom of your feet, bring that energy line back up, past your knees, your hips, your chest, your shoulders, your throat chakra, the face, that third eye, and the top of your head, your crown chakra. Now you're wide open and connected with us here in this space that Om Times and Humanity Healing have created for us to get together and to chat. So back again from Lincoln, Nebraska. Haley, thank you. I appreciate that and appreciate you joining us. So today I wanted to talk about keeping promises to ourselves. And when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about how it seems really ordinary and everyday, and it's something that we don't always succeed in. At least I don't. So I wanted to address it. How do we make promises to ourselves? What does that mean? And how should we feel about it if we need to compromise or people are asking us to compromise? So chime in and let me know what you think about keeping promises to yourself. But, people criticize us and they say we're being selfish when we think about what we need and want. But the reality is, if we don't think about what we need and want, we're really not likely to get it, right? But we're also less likely to do that thing in the world that only we can do, because each of us has a contribution to make to the world, and we need to be our best at mind, body, and spirit and being able to do that. And one of the ways that we become our best at honoring our place in the world and our work that we have to do and just ourselves for being here is by being clear on what it takes to make a promise to ourselves and what that means. So when I make a promise to myself, right, I realize that the promise itself has to be intentional and deliberate. Okay, so it's something that I've thought about. I weighed the pros and cons. I thought about what it means to make that promise to myself. So it's not something that I just ran off and decided that I need an extra a head of lettuce for dinner, or I want a certain pair of shoes or something. It's something very deliberate that has an impact on my life, an impact on how I feel about myself, and an impact on me, body, mind, and spirit, which then, of course, has an impact on the people around us and around in our families, right? So making a promise is really important. You're serious about it and you don't take it lightly, and you also consider the morality of it, right? Um, can I accept the challenges that come with making this promise to myself? And what does that mean as I go about and interact in the world? So let me give you an example of what happened in my life, and maybe it will reverberate with you, or maybe you have an even better example of keeping a promise to yourself, in which case, please share it here. But I've had a lifelong practice of, or a bad habit, I should say, of letting people run roughshod over me. You don't want to hurt their feelings, and you want to get along, you want to have friends, and so you end up getting run over on a regular basis. And I finally decided that I would no longer tolerate someone in my life who was all about them and wasn't about the community. It's great to have what you want stated out front and for everyone else to do that too. But if you're in a group, you need to compromise, right? That's part of life. The question is, how much do we compromise, and what does that actually mean in our lives, and what does that mean for us as we grow our souls? So the question with me recently was some new friend in my life, and I started realizing that this person always wanted everything in a particular way, and they weren't willing to listen or even consider anybody else's needs or wants. And that was starting to set up alarm bells, with me. And I'm like, how do I think about that? And that's when I started thinking seriously about making a promise to yourself. So when you're thinking about making a promise, which is intentional and deliberate, and there's the morality, and then there's the getting along in life question, the question I had to ask myself, well, is this conflict with this person a minor issue? Is it my irritation today? Is it a pattern? Is it something about this relationship that doesn't value me or themselves or anyone else? Life is full of give and takes, right? You give and take here and there. Compromise is part of life. We can't always have everything we want, and it all flows together and everybody gets along. And so compromise is important. But how do we create a healthy plan for ourselves that allows for compromise, but doesn't really create that conflict with a sincere promise that you made to yourself? Now, I consider a promise like a sacred thing. And that's what I'm trying to get at here in talking about making a promise to myself. I needed to, and this is a lifelong thing, I needed to learn to value myself more. And I've noticed with my clients, the same issue goes on. How do you value yourself? How do you compromise? And what does it mean to share in a world of differing wants and needs? So I started thinking about what the word promise means, and I kind of looked it up, and it was like going back to the 15th century, where it means to make a declaration about the future, about some act to be done. So there's a promise to myself. So in the future, moving forward, what I did when I promised myself was that I would not allow myself to be bullied. But I needed to weigh whether it was bullying or just, someone having a difficult day, or me, myself, having a difficult day. So put in context of the one thing that we're all here to do, which is to grow our souls, right? Then when we promise ourselves something, we are making a sacred statement on what we need for our souls and what supports us body, mind, and spirit. That's a promise. What supports us, body, mind, and spirit? What's the sacred statement that we need for ourselves, for our souls? How does that play out in the world around us? So it doesn't matter what your promise looks like to someone else. It can seem minor to them. It's, what you're going through, what obstacles you need to overcome, what growth cycle you're in, and your promise to yourself, which is honoring who you are and who you intend to be in the world. Because again, we're here to grow our souls, but we also each have a contribution to make to the world. And then our promise then is to be the best that we can, mind, body, and the spirit, so that we can grow our souls, so we can have satisfying lives, so we can make that contribution to our family, our friends, and the community around us. And that's a really big deal. And I know you feel the same way. So, in my lifelong habit of letting people run over me, I've known that it isn't good for me, but it was a pattern ingrained in me early on by this mindset in our culture that women aren't good enough, that if you're female, you're not good enough. And so your needs should give way to the needs of the community or the men around you. It's not healthy, and it took a long time for me to see that pattern and to change that pattern in my life. And I still sometimes slip back into it because we all want to please people, right? So whatever that comes from, the desire to please people and to have friends and to be part of a group is a big thing, because humans are social creatures. But I realized it isn't true that any of us are inferior to anyone else. And of course, we live that pattern throughout our lives of learning to value ourselves and learning to then make these promises to ourselves that mean something to us and mirror a good and moral way of being in the world. So when I had this conflict with this new person, and I realized there was a habit of bullying and lack of consideration for others to the point of actually being abusive and not honoring mind, body, and spirit, then I decided to let that relationship go. And, it's tough because you're hoping to have new friends or to continue with other friends and, to grow old together, so to speak. And sometimes things don't work out. So, what I'm asking you today is to consider what a promise means to you. How does it affect you, mind, body, and spirit? How does it allow you to grow, for you to nurture yourself, to do the fun things that you want in life, to take care of yourself adequately, and then to keep growing your soul so that you can make that big contribution to the world that we all need to make, and our contribution to ourselves and our families, first of all. So sit down and decide what it is you need to honor yourself, and define it. I want to make friendships, and this is my definition. I want to make friendships that honor me, mind, body, and spirit, where they also honor themselves and other people, mind, body, and spirit, which is different than just your casual relationship. And I also need to weigh the needs of compromise, which is part of life, and then make a decision in a current situation based on that. So the more that you do this, the more you make a promise to yourself and keep it, the better you are at keeping mind, body, and soul together intact and healthy and growing, which is what you need. You'll be better off, your family and your real friends will be better off, and the world will be better off because you're in a better position to make that contribution to the world. So let me check in and see if we have any comments. Hi from Sweden. Hi from Florida. Wow, that's like hot and muggy, right? And hi from Hampton Bay, New York. So think about these issues, what it is that you need to make a promise to yourself. And how will you feel when you make that promise? So I made this promise to honor myself and to move away from people who weren't honoring me because they were then not honoring themselves or the world around them. And it was tough at first, but to be honest, it felt really good. It felt like, well, now I can move on and find the real people. And I learned something in that encounter. I learned that, we're always having new experiences, but we're also needing to weigh them in terms of mind, body, and spirit, how we feel emotionally, physically, metaphysically, in all those different ways so that we can be the best that we can be. And when we are the best that we can be, that's when we are better at our jobs, we're better at taking care of ourselves and our family, we have more fun, and we're just more satisfied in general. And that's when we continue to grow. So, wow, huh? That's a big deal, making promises to ourselves. So, the crystal of the week that helps us make our promises and keep our promises to ourselves is bloodstone. So, bloodstone is a green quartz that has what I think yellow, yellow jasper, red and yellow jasper in it. So it's good for boosting courage and determination, which is what you need when you need to stand your ground firmly, which is part of keeping your promise to yourself. So carrying a piece of bloodstone around or having it there in view at your desk or someplace around your house where you see it frequently, reminding you that it's there to support you, to be courageous, to be determined. It also helps with creativity and boosting your intuition, and listening to your intuition is part of that, all that deal about keeping your promise to yourself. It helps, bloodstone helps calm your mind, right? Get rid of confusion. So it helps you make better decisions. So it helps you go back to that first base and say, what is it that I need here? What does this promise to myself look like? What are the ramifications of that? How do I fine tune it so it's like the perfect promise to myself? And if you're in a tough situation, that bloodstone can help you make a decision and adjust to what comes from that decision. So that's really kind of it for today. I wanted to just run through here and see. Oops, sorry, my screen isn't scrolling, so I can't go back and see who's. Oh, there we go. I'm making some comments. Great, 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 awesome from Dallas. Judy, a question. Oops. Judy, that's a great question. Bella, a video on anxiety. I will talk about that. Thanks for asking for that. I don't have one right now, but I will. And Judy, how do we know we have a contribution to make to the world? And we will talk more about that in an upcoming episode. We had another question. Judy, that's a great question. How do we know we have a contribution to make in the world? Here's how I see that, and how I've learned from watching my animal family and other people around me learning and growing. I grew up in a religious tradition, which I have since stepped away from, but the underlying basis of any sort of spiritual tradition is growing ourselves. A lot of times people look at it as you have a job to do and you need to go do it. But what is that? So each one of us, human, animal, tree, building, airplane, whatever it is, everything is alive and has a soul. And the soul takes that particular body to grow itself in that experience. And one of the things that they do by growing themselves in that experience is making a contribution to the world around them to continue to breathe good air, so to speak, to boost each other up, to continue to grow so that we can continue to learn and to what your spiritual tradition would call doing good in the world, being good in the world. And really, people wonder a lot. They say, what is my purpose in life? And I feel left behind because I'm just a grocery store clerk or something like that. And there's no just anything. Oh my God, I could never be a grocery store clerk. They have to know too much and I would just be lost in it. So when I look at what other people are doing in the world, people will say, well, I'm just doing this and I'm just doing that. And no, if you're doing the best you can at whatever it is that you're doing, you're making that contribution of essential goodness, the essential right, the essential yeast, if you will, that helps rise up around the world. And so our contribution to each other and to the world is to always learn to love ourselves and to spread that out. Now, I used to think of love as too fluffy and too like pink. And I learned from the lesson of watching my dogs, in particular my dog Alki, simply love what was right in front of him. And love is that expression which ties into promising, making promises to ourselves, is valuing ourselves, valuing the world around us. And so whatever you're doing to be your best is making a contribution in the world. It doesn't mean you have to go out and sign a peace treaty. It means you do your best at what is right in front of you. And by doing your best, you're adding that leavening, that yeast that rises up, that everything is just that much more positive, if you will, that much more sacred, that much more joy and peace in the world that continues to inspire others around us. So instead of going around being really negative and hating everything, which is a very dense energy, our contribution, whatever it is, if it's given with joy and love, and it's boosting mind, body, and spirit, that is bringing that softer, that loving energy into the world. And I'll talk more about that in another video. So I hope that helps, that gives you some answer and you know what that contribution is. I think if you feel really good about the job that you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing. Yesterday, I was down at the beach and we're well back away up on the sidewalk and out to sea is a mother seal and her baby was born about 2 weeks ago. And I was visiting with people that are there every day. And I said, wow, I feel really rich and satisfied today. And they go like, okay, what did you do? And I said, I went grocery shopping. Sunday mornings is the farmer's market and it's to the pet store to get food for the kids and the grocery store and all of that. And that's my contribution for Sunday. So contributions can be that small or that momentous. Food for the week, nourishment to support us, and satisfaction that I did everything I could to make that the best trip to the farmer's market and the grocery store possible. So you see, you making your contribution seems like a very small thing, but it's going out and living your best life the best way you can. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. I'm here every week or most every week at 11 Pacific time. And you can also find my radio show at ohmtimes.com radio. It's the practical, intuitive, mind, body, spirit for the real world. It airs the first and third Wednesday of the month, Monday of the month, because I've suddenly skipped 2 days. The first and third Monday of the month. So next week, my show will be on what's really going on in the world of animals and veterinary medicine and the human-animal bond. But if you would like to work with me, you can find me at my website, robynfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. I offer personal and business intuition, mediumship, animal communication, space clearing, past life and between life regression, a process called soul progression clearing, which helps clear out those blocks so we can make our promises and our contribution to the world, fill us up with healthy energy. And spiritual journeys, spiritual awakenings, a number of videos webinars at the Learn It Live platform. And if you want to keep up with what's going on, including my upcoming book, you can go to my website, Robin Fritz, and sign up for my newsletter and get a free video meditation with Fallon. So let me know other subjects you'd like me to cover in future shows. And if you like this, please like the Om Times pages, the Humanity Healing page, and my page, the Practical Intuitive Robin M. Fritz. And you can always contact me there. So thank you for joining us today. Take care, and we'll see you next week.